Mamafox book Storytime Saturdays. I'm children's author Phoebe Fox, and I really appreciate your watching. Today we're going to read a tale from long ago. It's called The Jar of Bees. The Jar of Bees is told by Ben Butterworth and illustrated by Tomasin Cole. One day, long, long ago, Tiger sat looking up at a nest of bees. The bees were busily flying in and out of their nest. Tiger shook his head in wonder as he watched. "Bees are clever things," he said to himself. "Bees are clever." While he was sitting there, Rabbit came hopping by. She stopped when she saw Tiger sitting under the tree. "Good morning, Tiger," said Rabbit. "Good morning," said Tiger. "What are you doing?" asked Rabbit. "I'm watching those bees," said Tiger. "I think bees must be the cleverest things in the world." "Why?" asked Rabbit. "Well," said Tiger, "bees make their own home and they make their own food. They have workers and a queen, and their home is like a little town inside." "I don't think bees are clever," said Rabbit. "Not clever?" asked Tiger. "Don't be silly. I suppose you think you are cleverer than bees." "Yes, I do," said Rabbit. "I have never heard such nonsense," said Tiger. "I will set you a test to prove that you are talking nonsense." "Go on then," said Rabbit. Tiger had seen a jar lying under the tree. He thought for a moment. Tiger said, "To prove how clever you are, I want you to fill this jar with bees. Fill it with 125 bees. Not one more, not one less. Exactly 125. I know that's impossible. Meet me here 1 hour from now. I will eat you up if you cannot put 125 bees in the jar, and that will be that." Tiger walked away, smiling to himself. Rabbit thought and thought for a long time. Then she went into the forest, holding the jar and saying in a loud voice, "Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't. Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't." Squirrel came by and heard Rabbit. "Perhaps what will? Perhaps what won't? What are you talking about?" Squirrel asked. "Shh, shh, it's a secret," said Rabbit, and she walked on through the forest saying, "Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't. Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't." Monkey came by and heard Rabbit. "Perhaps what will, perhaps what won't. What are you talking about?" asked Monkey. "Shh, shh, it's a secret," said Rabbit, and she walked on through the forest saying, "Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't. Perhaps it will, perhaps it won't." Then the bees flew by and heard her. "Perhaps what will, perhaps what won't. What are you talking about?" asked Queen Bee. "It's this jar," said Rabbit. "You see, Tiger said this jar would hold exactly 125 bees. Not one more and not one less. So I said perhaps it will and perhaps it won't." Queen Bee looked at the jar and said, "That jar certainly will not hold 125 of us." "Perhaps it will," said Rabbit. Queen Bee became very angry. She stamped her foot and shouted, "I tell you it won't." "But perhaps it will," said Rabbit quietly. "I know it won't," shouted Queen Bee. "I know it won't." "How can you prove it?" asked Rabbit. "There's only one way to prove it," said Queen Bee. "My bees will fly into the jar and you can count them. I will go first to show them what to do." "All right," said Rabbit. "I suppose that is the only way." And so Queen Bee led the way into the jar and the other bees followed her one at a time. Rabbit counted them. 1, can you count with me? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on she counted. 124. 125. Rabbit popped the lid on the jar quickly and went to find Tiger. Tiger was waiting by the tree, licking his lips. "I told you it was impossible," he said. "Now I'm going to eat you up." "Wait a minute," said Rabbit. "Here you are, just as I said. 125 bees in the jar. Not one more and not one less. Count them if you like. They are all there." Tiger let the bees out one at a time. He counted them. 1, will you join me again? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On and on he counted. 124, 125. Now who is cleverer? Asked Rabbit. The bees or me? What do you think? Now that is the end of A Tale from Long Ago. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please subscribe and feel free to share this with a friend. See you next time.